And so Licht's past is explained. Almost. There are still some questions here I just cannot understand. And I don't know if it's the author being, you know, com confusing us, over-analyzing things, or if this is how it is. But this seems to at least explain why were there two Licht over there. Well, apparently, if I understood this correctly, it's because the Licht that we have seen all this time was not the real Licht. The real Licht was the one who was just revived in the light, so to speak. Someone else reincarnated into a body that was Licht. I mean, does that make sense? I know I am completely confused, and yet at the same time, everything was explained right now. Well, not everything, we still have too many questions, but hey, this is Black Clover. Black Clover is not meant to be a complicated manga, so if they threw these complicated things, I am getting a little worried, I have to not deny that. But that doesn't mean this chapter was bad. Yes, this is the Black Clover chapter 148, and I am the Angry Anime Fan, the Despair Reviewer. Basically, as I just said, this is just a flashback about Licht, and almost what, happened up until now. We see a flashback of someone looking into their eyes. We do not know who this one is, though, but we see the day Licht got his magic. And here is the funny part. Licht's original magic was not light. Or, I mean, at least this shows also that it wasn't... I mean, the Licht we have seen before, his magic was not light either. Either way, his magic was sword magic. And also, wait a moment, this also explained what that Licht said a long time ago against Asta. Those swords belong to the Master, and the Master is the original Licht, because he had sword magic. I think that has finally been explained. Either way, he got his sword magic, and he was a four-leaf clover. And the guy who said this asked what it was, and he said it will bring luck. He admired Licht from the bottom of his heart, although Liar just said thought he was a pain in the ass. However, Licht was very kind to this strange young one, and he also explained that even back then, Licht didn't really believe in human and elves working together. However, unlike the one we have seen before, he was not consumed by hatred by it. At least not yet. Here he actually acknowledged that the species of the humans were those of wicked hearts and killed animals for fun. I guess this means that elves were nature lovers and never killed animals themselves. And even though they had weak magic, they all grew in number. So Licht here acknowledged that they were afraid because they were the same. They resemble each other, but their magic was entirely different. And yet they are still beings that are bested upon by getting grimoires, so to speak. And it was during this flashback a wind magic of him was running wild. Licht jumped in, and also another person saw it. Together they dispatched the wind with the Licht with his blade magic, and this person who turned out to be the the first magic sorcerer with his light magic, and who was in this wind magic, but which, by the way, was the people were very amazed that someone had as strong magic as Licht. Who was in this wind magic? Well, none other than Tetia, who turned out to be, as we all know, the sister to the first magic emperor, and the woman that Licht fell in love with. Wait a moment. It's revealed here she had wind magic? I'm still not sure how that makes sense, but people, once again we are getting that clue. The wind magic. Is a wind magic user. there is something there that is not a coincidence. If it is a coincidence, then I have to say to the author, that was pretty bad of you. You should have made it a point. But my point is, there is some kind of spiritual, destiny-like connection there. Is Juno really the child of Licht and Theta? I mean, again, that will only spark the question, how the hell does that make sense? I mean, after all, this is hundreds of years ago. But again, this is not supposed to be a complicated manga, so we are overthinking things. There is a connection. Necessarily doesn't have to be the sun, but I know there is a connection here. We just don't know what it is yet. Either way, he is a, and this was the first time the Magic Emperor met Licht, and they befriended each other because, well, they have both the same four-leaf clover, and they shared many different stories. And as we know, Licht fell in love with Theta, and Theta fell in love with him. At least that's how we presume. They each showed each other gadgets, and it turns out that despite the elves being very big with magic, it turns out that they were not so scientific in amazing, because according to here, the Magic Emperor showed him some magic technology, and Lich reacted to that with surprise. So that was the time of that friendship, and the Magic Emperor believed that if the elves worked together with the humans, their human magic technology would have become amazing, and it would become a safe place. They should all have joined hands. And with that, Theta also got pregnant, and the marriage all started. However, then suddenly a field happened where their magic was sealed. They couldn't use their magic, and they were attacked by light magic. It was during this time that this boy who we saw through his eyes, lost his life, until he suddenly woke up, and he wondered where he was. When he looked in the mirror, he saw Licht, not himself, and he wondered, what is that possible? He wondered if his soul was inside Licht's body. He knew that the body he had was human, but the form looked like Licht. He knew he died. However, he concluded that Licht must have, the real Licht must have, before he died, cast a forbidden magic that was reincarnation magic. Because it was there that many souls of the elves all scattered across Clover Kingdom, which confirms the theory. Yes, Gorsh really is a reincarnation of that friend of Licht, and very likely Luck is also a reincarnation of that elf as well. And as well, we even so many more. Yes, everyone we saw in that village, there is a reincarnation there, definitely. So, but according to this kid, it was impossible to reincarnate everyone. However, this kid decided with the grimoire, with the owner of this body. The owner of this body was just sleeping, so he ran to the library, and there he was chosen by a four-leaf clover, because he considers himself now the chosen one. He will revive the real Licht and revive the elves, and after that he will destroy the humans. This was the start of everything. The Licht we have seen up until now is not the real Licht we have seen in the flashbacks. No, it's someone who admired him ever since he was a kid. And this, as I said before in the beginning of this review, this answered one question. Back then, the White Knight leader Licht, when his magic was getting out of control after Asta hit him, he said, those swords belong to the master, or someone very important to us. And as Nozel said, isn't this guy the leader? That was the moment the White Knight Licht leader actually dropped his personality as Licht and showed that he wasn't Licht, but we did not know that at that time, at least. This confirms it. This is what he meant. He meant the real Licht. It's just that we did not know that because we did not have any enough clues about that. So the real leader of the elves are Licht itself. But then in all seriousness, who is this kid? Because we did not hear his name, at least I don't think so. It's still not actually explained. If he is not the real Licht, then why wasn't he in a body that looked like Licht? We can only presume that he was in William's body, because after all, William and the White Knight Licht shared a soul. Huh. But he considered himself the chosen one, and he was chosen by the magic Clover, and very likely got light magic in order to cast the revenge. This was the birth of hatred, and he then collected the souls of his deceased elves, and each revived them as he could, but he could only revive Lyre and Veto, so to speak. The only question is, did any of them know that this was not the real Licht, or is it possibility that they just didn't care? Well, they were all consumed by hatred, and this was the time when they decided to revive the elves, and once the elves are revived, their hatred will attack the Clover Kingdom. Still though, there are still some very unanswered questions in this flashback. First of all, who was the one that attacked the village? Was it really the Magic Emperor? I mean, yeah, the first Magic Emperor. Because this flashback seems to imply that Licht and Tata's wedding was there and then they were attacked, which means Tata was there as well, right? So why would the Magic Emperor attack his own sister? I mean, number two, it very likely was humans, because after all, just because the Magic Emperor was a kind soul, doesn't necessarily mean that the rest of the world was. After all, we have seen that so much in nobility. Number three, again, the wind connection. You know, and everything else. There is a connection there, I just cannot put my finger on it in a way that it makes sense. And four, this again. This was not the real Licht, but I actually, when I looked at his face, I actually wondered, wait, is that the Magic Emperor? But then I think, no, that cannot be. They just had similar hairstyles, but they cannot be that Magic Emperor. I mean, wouldn't it be funny if it turns out that this kid that we're all seeing was the first Magic Emperor, and he wanted to punish his fellow humans? But no, that's impossible. It's definitely a kid who looked up to Licht. So, yeah, and again, it seemed to be answered that the reason that the real Licht really did create those anti-magic swords. The question is, how, though, and when did he? There is still also that the other unanswered question is the demon story. Again, we should take that as a grain of salt now, because after all, the corruption in Clover Kingdom and the nobility, we all should presume that maybe that story was just a part of fiction. Then again, that does not explain the giant skull in Clover Kingdom. So yeah, the demon magic must have happened. The question is now, though, how? There are still so many questions I cannot wrap my hand around and I cannot make sense of. So, do you think I understand what I'm trying to say? I mean, I'm almost melting of anger just thinking of what is happening. But you give me your thoughts if you have any. Because this chapter, I didn't really mind this flashback chapter.